and welcome. This is Paul Sandhu. I came across this short video in which the Prime Minister of India, he is quoting from some ancient Indian mythological writings called the Mahabharata, and based on that, he told us that in India they were practicing the science of genetic experimentation and manipulation a long time before the modern times, and we are talking like thousands and perhaps tens of thousands of years ago. This is not at all surprising, as I've documented in my Bible history series that these things they did go on under the man called Lucifer in the age that came before this present age of Adam. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then it would be a good idea for you to go and watch my Bible history video series in which I document the ages that came before this present one and what happened in them, how the race of angels first sinned and introduced evil into God's creation, including the creation of money and idolatry, worshiping of false gods, etc. These angelic beings were the creatures over the gods called the Titans in Greek mythology, and they also were accompanied by a race of men, or a human like, what we are in the modern times, people or flesh and blood creatures that are very similar to us and even genetically compatible with us. These are called the sons of God in the Bible. The most famous member of these ancient race of humans called the sons of God in the Bible, his name is Lucifer. In mythology, they have stories of Zeus, Apollo, and in India like Vishnu, Ram, Brahma, etc. That's who these guys were. They were sons of God, and they were flesh and blood. So these stories about these ancient worlds that existed, they have to somehow fit together into a logical history which makes sense as to what happened and why it happened. Okay, and that's what I have been documented, and videos such as this one, and I will keep putting more and more of these clips because there's so many of them, especially with the megalithic ruins that are being found, evidence of giants having existed. And by the way, the Nephilim giants that people talk about a lot, they were not like a product of angels and human women mating. They were mutants. They were genetic mutants that were created by genetically manipulating the genes of these sons of God men, and by some mad scientist, maybe Lucifer, creating a gene of gigantism, or maybe the race of angels that did that. That's where they came from. Okay, there was science involved in it, just as you shall see in this short video in which the Indian Prime Minister is again speculating that this was going on in ancient India. Of course, the Prime Minister's he's trying to to glorify the land of India and its accomplishments, but I would like to say that from a biblical perspective, it was not, the nations did not exist in that time. They did have different, what you might call lords and barons that rule, but the concept of nations was not as we know it today. So this genetic experimentation and all this megalithic constructions and the creation of invention of super weapons and energy weapons and all those things, they were not just limited to the region of India. They were going on in Europe, as we read in Greek mythologies, in the Americas, and all across the face of the earth. So that's all I am going to comment on this video. So please go sit back and enjoy the 7-8 minute video in which is again those mention of those things which I have been recording and teaching in my Bible history video series. And if you haven't seen them, then you would be if you're interested in real history, I think that would be something that you will really benefit from watching. Thank you again. This is Paul Sandhu.
What if we were to tell you something so wonderful that it is almost unthinkable? A giant leap of sorts in terms of understanding our ancient past, which has been ignored by world governments for centuries. Now, in modern times, Indian national leaders are attempting to rewrite the past 1,000 years or so What they want to do is a visionary idea that links the very ancient past with higher technology and global influence, which is described in mythology. This is now being recognized as accurate historical records, and the doors of suppression are about to be blown wide open.
So I just wanted to pause this here and read you a quote from this Prime Minister Modi. He said in this article, it says, Modi went on, we worship Lord Ganesha. And this Lord Ganesha is this elephant-headed god whose image you can see here. Okay, we worship Lord Ganesha. There must have been some plastic surgeon at the time who got an elephant's head on the body of a human being and began the practice of plastic surgery. Now, he is, in essence, it almost sounds comical, this that he began the practice of plastic surgery, but there's a great deal of truth in this, that this is exactly how it was done. It was not just by sewing an elephant's head on a human body. The way it was done was that they mixed these genes in some kind of lab to manufacture these creatures, okay, these hybrid creatures. And the number of hybrid creatures that existed in the Bronze Age of Lucifer, they are truly mind-boggling. I have no idea, but I would estimate that they are in the millions of species and maybe even more. Okay, we are talking about humans and land animals, humans and fish, and fish and land animals, and just any kind of combination that you can think of that was done in that time. And that's what made that age so abominable. And therefore, when the destruction of that age came, as I've documented in my Bible history videos, it was not just limited, the judgment of God that fell on it, it was not just on the earth, it went right up into the heavens, which is why in Genesis chapter 1, we read that the darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the earth was without form and void. There was no sun, there was no moon, there were no stars, because everything was destroyed. That world was truly more strange than the island of Dr. Moreau, more strange than any sci-fi movie you might have seen, more strange than any mythological legend movie like you might have seen, like the Lord of the Rings or anything like that. It was far beyond that. It was far more corrupt, and it was far more, these creatures, they were not very pleasant to behold. But of course, nowadays when they create images of these ancient hybrid creatures who are called gods, even up until today, they try and make them look as pretty or as palatable as possible. But if you could see them in reality, I think they were like real monstrous creatures. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to say, that these people, they do speculate that such things have gone on in the past. Wars have happened, genetics, etc. Science was very advanced, but they don't know who and why. And the who and why is, yes, it was done in the age prior to our own, which was the age of Lucifer, and it was Lucifer who was the ultimate mad scientist. And of course, there were many, many more who did all these things.
It has been long argued that history is vast, that the structures on this earth were built by machines rather than forced labor, and that the today and now is nothing but a pebble in the ocean compared to the lost history of civilization on our earth and even beyond.
In our modern world, I think India perhaps preserves the evidence of these ancient history much more than anywhere else, okay? Because not only is India filled with ancient buildings, ancient temples, I mean, some of them are really going back thousands of years and maybe even older than that. But also in these temples are carved images and pictures and carved in stone or drawn on walls, etc., of all these ancient creatures. And this you can even see, like the image you're looking at on the screen. This you can go down to any Indian temple, and especially in South India, and it'll be no problem to see all these creatures who are like, some kind of mutants or genetics, like the elephant head god or the monkey, the monkey headed god who is Hanuman. And then they have one of the common features you see is that a lot of these gods have like multiple limbs. And then also one more thing is, which again tells you the satanic And of course, from a biblical perspective, the Luciferian nature of these creations is that they all have, as you see in the picture on the top, serpents, whether it's Shiva or any of the other gods like Vishnu, etc. What you will generally find is that their covering is that of the serpent, who, of course, is the biblical Satan.
Long ago, there were gods. There were vehicles that could fly, but the ancient civilization that predates our time in history is so much older that it stretches our consciousness to the very limits of how realistic we can be with this sort of information. We have crammed history into the past 5,000 years. It's a joke that we even believe this to be possible, never mind true. And we have been surprised with information coming out of India, who are now taking steps to realize this to be true. This is absolutely pioneering, and what we are about to tell you should be applauded by the rest of the world. Hindu nationalists have long propagated their belief that many discoveries of modern science and technology were known to the people of ancient India. But now, for the first time, an Indian Prime Minister has endorsed these claims. Narendra Modi states, "We all read about Karna in the Mahabharata. If we think a little more, we realize that the Mahabharata says Karna was not born from his mother's womb. This means that genetic science was present at the time. This is why Karna could be born outside his mother's womb." There must be many areas in which our ancestors made big contributions. Some of these are well recognized. If we talk about space science, our ancestors had, at some point, displayed great strengths in space science. What people like Aryabhata had said centuries ago is being recognized by science today. What I mean to say is that we are a country which had these capabilities. We need to regain these. This is not the first time that Modi has publicly articulated such ideas, but he did so earlier as Chief Minister of Gujarat state and not as Prime Minister. He also wrote the foreword to a book for school students in Gujarat, which maintains, among other things, that the Hindu god Rama flew the first airplane and that stem cell technology was known in ancient India. Modi's claims at the Mumbai hospital initially went unreported in the Indian media. No Indian scientist has come forward yet to challenge him. Makes you think, does it not? This is one man making one claim. Imagine what else could be put forward. Every day, slowly but surely, more of us are waking up. The truth is out there. The writing is literally on the wall. Thank you for watching.